Hey there, and thank you so much for joining us on Weather Out West on this Wednesday. I'm meteorologist Ashley Ruiz. Here's what we're tracking for you. It's another first alert weather day for Seattle with round 2 of the atmospheric river showers and just downpours. They're poised to dump even more rain. They have team coverage of impacts around western Washington. And over the next 24 hours, they could see record-breaking levels at several rivers. In Auburn, floodwaters are encroaching on properties and shutting down streets. Heavy rainfall also means mud and debris are moving. What appears to be a landslide near North Bend is now trapping people inside their homes. And residents of Snohomish in Washington are all too familiar with flooding. High waters are returning, and this time could break records. Once again, we want to thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday. And welcome to Weather Out West if you haven't joined us before. This is an hour-long show where we showcase what's happening weather-wise across the western United States. We begin today back in Seattle, where our team is out there tracking devastating flooding all across western Washington. Many people living near rivers are nervously watching the water rise. Mud and debris are also moving under the heavy rain of the ongoing atmospheric river near North Bend, Washington. What appears to be a landslide, mudslide, it's causing road closures. Seattle's Drew Andre has more.
We're here at Edgewick Road that is right now completely blocked off to what it looks like to us about 15 homes. As you take a look at the video here, you can see about half the roadway is gone. It's just been washed out. This all started Monday night in that first rainstorm. We're told that a portion of the road was taken out, but cars were still able to get through there. And then now with this latest burst of heavy rain, it is now closed. And that means all of the people back behind that road that live there are essentially trapped for the time being, because that is the only access road. There are crews from King County that have been out here. We also want to show you all of the rainwater runoff that we're seeing here too. Look, it essentially looks like a waterfall. There have also been sandbags that are placed here to try to control that a little bit. All of this water then is flowing down towards the creek right over here to my left. So a lot of work that all these crews are managing. Reporting near North Bend, Drew Andre, King 5 News.
And take a look at this. The Washington Department of Transportation shared this photo showing a hillside brought down by the heavy rain in the North Bend area. This was near a ramp along I-90 just on Tuesday, and it forced the closure of all eastbound lanes for several hours. Rocks and mud slid down the hill along the highway. Geotechnical experts will now be monitoring the area. Urban flooding is a big concern in Auburn, Washington. Several neighborhoods are seeing floodwaters filling driveways and yards, including at the Neely Mansion. Seattle's Savannah Welch reports from Auburn with the latest.
Yeah, here in Auburn, we're seeing a lot of flooding in roads and streets and fields as well, and gas stations too. Take a look at the Chevron here behind me. The entire parking lot is submerged. I talked to the manager earlier this morning. He said they got in about 5 a.m. and they can't even get to the front door. They're trying to figure out how they're going to drain this once the rain finally lets up. But there's upwards of 3 feet of water. It's just very high, spilling out into the roadway here. And nearby streets like South 277th are closed. Obviously, major drainage issues here. The Green River is very close by to where we are, and it runs through Auburn. It's been causing some issues, as well as some of those fields out there that are just collecting water and overflowing. Let's show you that video from earlier. This was on Black Diamond Road, where multiple houses were surrounded by water. Right now, 7 miles of Green Valley Road are shut down because of safety concerns. King County is warning people not to drive or walk through that area, or obviously flooded areas too. Again, we've seen some people get stuck. We've seen some people have to get towed out of driving through some of those high standing water areas, and also some people, might not see debris. There's just stuff in the roadway that can always cause issues, so you might not see that if you're driving through, you might think you might be able to make it, but there are a lot of people that get stuck. We saw multiple cars get towed yesterday that were stuck after they bypassed a road closure. So make sure to follow those signs, follow what crews tell you to do, and be safe out there, because obviously water is a very big issue today. In Auburn, Savannah Welch, King 5 News.
Never underestimate the power of water. Elsewhere in Auburn, the heavy rain and flooding rivers continue to have an impact on other houses. Here's a picture of the Neely Mansion. You can see the front yard just submerged in water, cutting off access to the house. Now, let's get a check on the forecast. I'm going to take a deeper dive into the forecast for Western Washington. We have over 24 of our rivers under flood warnings, and we're expecting another crest. We had a lower crest just yesterday and into Monday, but now we're expecting even higher river rises. Let's talk about this atmospheric river, because it's still stretching about 2,300, that's an estimate, 2,300 miles from or across the Pacific, from Hawaii all the way to Western Washington and the Pacific Northwest. Zooming in, you can see where the bulk of the moisture is currently falling. So that's where we're seeing the heaviest rain, and that fire hose, you just see how it's just consistently and just being persistent. The rain is being persistent and falling over Western Washington all the way up into Vancouver Island and along the Canadian border. When we're talking about atmospheric rivers, these are very, very common along the West Coast. However, the majority of them are beneficial for us, and typically this is what brings us all the much needed rain, especially to California when we have some of those really bad droughts, and it typically ends the fire season for a large portion of the area. We also depend on that here in the Pacific Northwest. It's just when we start to get into that strong category, the AR3, which AR means atmospheric river, and it goes from 1 to 5, the scale. It's more of a scientific term. We didn't just make this term up. It is an atmospheric river. That is the scientific term of it. You may know it as the Pineapple Express, because we have all of that warm, moist air stretching all the way, usually down from Hawaii, the subtropics, the tropics as well. But in this case, we have a pretty strong atmospheric river. It was ranked an AR4, which is mostly hazardous. Here's a look at some of where we stand. I mentioned nearly or over 24 flood warnings for our rivers. Different portions of of the same river also included, but 26 of our rivers. 12 about, it keeps changing, but between about 10 and 13 are expected to reach major flood stage, possibly 3 reaching historic. We already had 1 reach a historic level. And here's some of the river forecast levels. So that purple color you see there, those are our major, or our rivers and portions of the rivers that are expected to reach major flood stage. So you see, this was as of 7 a.m. Wednesday, but I plotted them there just so you can see it's the majority of the rivers flowing off of the Cascades. Here's a look at those flood warnings. Again, 26 of our rivers included within those flood warnings. Here's a look at our river level forecast. This is as of 10 a.m. Wednesday, some of the gauges picking up on the numbers. And so the Puyallup near Orting, that one, it looks like it is crested. It was supposed to crest at 10 a.m. and so now it is above that, but the record was 21.5. The Snohomish at Snohomish, so some of our most concerning rivers are coming from Skagit and then Snohomish County, and you see the Snohomish at Snohomish is expected to crest on the 11th, which is on Thursday night, at 33.5 feet, which is the previous record. The Snohomish near Monroe initially, you see how it's forecast to crest in that major flood stage. Right now it's about 13.46. So it is climbing. The Cedar at Renton also expected to maybe come close to record flood stage, which was back in 1990, but the Skagit near Mount Vernon, that is going to be the big one, because not just a foot above the previous record. We're talking several feet, and that's expected to crest Friday morning. Here's some of our other rivers. This is now as of 10 a.m., so keep in mind if you're watching this later, these numbers, the current gauges are going to go up because our rivers are expected to climb over the next 24 hours. The Skykomish near Gold Bar, that one is expected to crest tonight around 10 o'clock, and so it is climbing already in major flood stage. Additionally, the Cowlitz at Randall, it is expected to crest tomorrow morning, but you see it's already in major flood stage, and so we may see some changes to that forecast. And so the red that you see, those are moderate flood stage. Major is the pink, so we have numerous ones. This is a product from the National Water Prediction Service. It's an experimental product, so they're just experimenting with it right now, but it still tells us the story. The blue that you see means considerable of flooding hazards, and so what they're saying is major and or record flooding is expected, especially along the Skagit and Snohomish rivers, and again, those coming off of the Cascades. Additionally, small stream and moderate to major river flooding is expected, again, especially for those rivers coming off of the Cascades. And there is an increased risk for debris flows and landslides just because our soils are so saturated. And all of that rain, well, it's got to go somewhere. And at this point, our vegetation, our soils just can't handle it. And so that is going to increase our risk for landslides, especially for those steep hillsides, the burn scars, steep coastal areas, and we have lots of hills here in the greater Seattle area. So this is what we're expecting today and into tomorrow. We've extended our first alert weather days into Thursday because we're still going to have some rain, but we're still going to have that river flooding. And so we are still anticipating that the low-lying areas that will see some issues as well. And up in the mountains, our snow levels are going to be way above 7,000 feet. So once again, that's where we're expecting the heaviest rain. It has to go somewhere, and it's going to fill our rivers. Where you see the yellow, that's where we're expecting the heaviest rain today. Additionally, we have a wind advisory in place. So it's not just the heavy rain and the flooding. We also have some wind to watch out for, gusts up to 40 miles per hour. Let's talk about timing. Here's this afternoon. You see the bulk of the rain. Look for the oranges, the yellows. That is basically from about Olympia northward, and it just continues over our mountains. So again, all of this rain is going to drain into our rivers. That's why it's really concerning for Skagit and Snohomish, and then even Snoqualmie, as you see. Into Thursday morning, it slowly peels and fades away from north to south. And before then, we are anticipating a couple of more inches of rain. I wanted to show you our Queen Anne camera. You can't see downtown Seattle. Quickly, I'll show you the rain totals through tonight. You see where some of the highest amounts are up in the mountains, but all the way up to the north as well. And then we keep adding up those rain totals as we get closer to Thursday when the rain is eventually going to end, but we're still expecting maybe 1 to 3 inches of rain here in the Seattle area, Puget Sound. Thankfully, we will start to dry things out, but check out those high temperatures, well above normal, about 10 degrees above normal. Unfortunately, it looks like we're not going to have any good snow up in our mountains, unfortunately. So we'll have to keep waiting for some of those ski resorts more than likely to open. All right, so with all of that being said, we're still expecting those high waters to return today, as I mentioned, and the Snohomish River could, as I mentioned, could crest at a record high level in the coming days over the next 24, 36 hours. Now let's see how this atmospheric river is affecting Portland.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Chris McGinnis. After 2.5 or 3 days soaking, we are finally getting an opportunity to dry out. Well over 3 inches of rain at PDX, and some of the most impressive rainfall totals from this atmospheric river up in the Cascades and in the Coast Range. The south side of Mount St. Helens, 13.3 inches of rain. That was as of 11 p.m. Last night. We've tacked on a little bit more since then, but rainfall amounts in the valley and in the Cascades and across all of Northwest Oregon and most of Southwest Washington have really dropped off. Speaking of the Cascades, by the way, this continues to be a story as we look live at Timberline Lodge at 6,000 feet on Mount Hood. It is December 10th, and typically there would be 3 feet of snow on the ground here now at this point. It's 42 degrees and there is nothing up there right now, and I don't see that changing over the next 5 to 7 days. Models do keep indicating in the extended period, getting out 7 to 10 days, that cooler weather will come in, but they keep saying that, and then it keeps not happening as that time frame gets closer. So again, that continues to be a story. The more short-term story, of course, is the heavy rain that we've had the last couple of days. The focus of that now has shifted well to the north, up into the Seattle area. You can still see that moisture plume, and it's impressive, but the good news for us here locally is that we'll stay to the north over the next 2 days. That said, Kelso up in Cowlitz County, the Cowlitz River is one of the area rivers that is running high, and it does drain the South Washington Cascades, right? So additional rainfall up there will keep that river running high. The flood warning actually remains through for minor flooding, remains in effect for the Cowlitz River in Kelso through Saturday. Elsewhere, though, you can see the amounts really taper off the farther south you go. In fact, modeling not showing any precipitation other than maybe a trace down towards Salem, Corvallis, and Albany through the day today. The live look from our Vancouver sky camera here from the Springs to the waterfront. The clouds are really zipping from the south to the north here. The south breeze at Pearson Field is at 10 miles an hour. At PDX, well, this is looking live down on downtown Portland. You can see the flag there atop the Umpqua Bank building snapping in the breeze. So it's a stout south wind this morning at 21 miles an hour. We've had some gusts to 30 earlier today, and Futurecast likes the idea of those 25 to 30 mile an hour wind gusts maintaining strength here throughout the day. So this is not overly impactful, but when you consider the fact that we've had so much rain, down trees could still potentially be an issue in 1 or 2 places. And with that, of course, comes the down power lines, any kind of road closures or anything like that. So we're still kind of dealing with the impacts of that heavy rain, even though the rain has shut off. But Futurecast again does show a little smattering of green on the map, indicating some light potential rain showers today and tomorrow. Temperature-wise, very, very warm. We've got Portland topping out at 58 to 60 later today. In fact, I've got us at 61. The record for today is 65. So for perspective, the average high this time of year is 47. So not quite a record, but still really, really warm. And of course, another part of the story as to why there's no snow at the Cascade ski resorts. And I don't see that changing, not in the next 5 to 7 days. What we do see, though, is the rain tapering off, so that's good. A few showers still today, maybe a few more tomorrow, and then a couple of dry days in our 7-day forecast on Friday and Saturday.
Thanks, Chris. When we come back, we're taking a look at conditions over the inland Northwest. And over in Boise, it's drier and it's warmer. Hector Mendoza talks about the ridge of high pressure keeping things pretty mild over in Idaho and the cool down coming for this weekend.
Well, we had some rain yesterday, but not a lot really fell in portions of the valleys there, as you can see there through Boise and Mountain Home. Only spots that got any measurable amount of precipitation. Nothing there for the Magic Valley, and most of that moisture was focused, and a lot of that rain there through Stanley, McCall, and some of the higher elevations. And as we continued on here through the afternoon, temperatures got pretty warm there, well above average. Some spots here across southwest Idaho also saw tying records with some of those record highs there for yesterday. And here are some of those spots there. Ontario hit 55 degrees, tied their record. Burns as well at about 54 degrees. Upper 50s for Jerome and near 60 there for Twin Falls. And a lot of these temperatures are going to climb up just a little bit more here through today as we'll continue with this ridge of high pressure. Now we have some of that moisture from that atmospheric river still hitting some spots as we look there to the coast of Washington, and we'll continue to see that through the panhandle of Idaho. Not much of that continues down further south, as we are going to see that this ridge of high pressure has really lifted and allowed some of that moisture to really make its way further northward. And those are going to be some of the spots we'll pay attention to as we still have some flood watches in some of those areas near the panhandle there. But as we look at the satellite radar picture here for southwest Idaho, other than some clouds, we're not expecting anything to really make its way through. Pretty quiet conditions here for today, and that's going to last in through the next couple of days and even in through early next week before we start to see another round of some showers. So here's that high pressure system that's going to continue to build here. We're going to see the temperatures are going to take a dip, but we'll see a lot more sunshine as we'll see clearing. But that's also going to allow for temperatures through the morning and through the night to start to cool off just a little bit more, as we'll be back to more of those freezing temperatures as we head towards Saturday night and Saturday morning. And then after that, we're expecting, again, those afternoon temperatures to take a little bit of a dip, but still stay well above average. And it's going to take its time before we see that next system make its way through. We're expecting as we get towards Sunday night to see these clouds start to build up. And then the next system will come in and bring some showers. Timing is still pretty uncertain as we look at Monday and Tuesday, but that's going to be our best shot for some moisture really to make its way through. Now, as we look at the 7-day forecast here for Twin Falls, temperatures into the 60s, well into the 50s all the way through Saturday. And then we are going to see that temperatures will stick around those low 50s from Sunday all the way through Tuesday. And the next chance again for some of those showers, although the totals are a lot less here in portions of the Magic Valley, we are going to see that chance of some rain to make its way through many valley spots. So now let's take a look at the 7-day forecast here for Boise. So again, we're going to continue into the 60s as well, just like we saw for Twin Falls. That's what we're expecting here in Boise. Upper 50s will look to last till Friday, but then that's when we're going to start to see these temperatures return to the low 50s there for Saturday and Sunday. We stay dry all the way through the weekend, but again, that next system comes in and we'll start to see a little bit more of some of those totals make their way through for Monday and Tuesday. But the big thing is for those folks that are going to come out and visit us here for 7 Cares Idaho Shares, an absolutely beautiful day as we're going to have afternoons into the low 50s. And then we're expecting, again, a very crisp but clear morning there for Saturday. Could see some fog there Friday through Sunday, but again, we are expecting, again, a lot more of that sunshine. More of that wet weather looks expected there to come in for Monday and Tuesday, and then those morning temperatures will start to rise back up into the 40s by the middle of next week.
And in eastern Washington, it's another windy one. Meteorologist Thomas Patrick breaks down where wind advisories are currently in effect.
I'm meteorologist Thomas Patrick in Spokane, Washington. Today, another windy day for the region as the atmospheric river for the Pacific Northwest will give us that next round of high winds for eastern Washington. So brand new wind advisories issued for the Spokane area. This actually goes all the way into 7 a.m. Thursday morning. So effectively an all day long wind advisory. Wind speeds up to 60 miles per hour is no joke. That certainly is strong enough to cause damage or power outages. So we wanted to make sure that you were well alerted to that. So the high winds today, again, will go generally until 7 a.m. tomorrow, though I think the strongest wind speeds are going to be either mid-afternoon or early evening. We'll give it more of a noon to 9 p.m. time frame for the strongest or maximum wind speeds. So again, 60 miles per hour, enough to do damage or cause power outages. Make sure to just secure any loose objects that might be in the front or backyard, though I suspect a lot of that's probably cleaned up after Monday night's high winds. And a very similar story for the inland Northwest as well. You see these pink shaded areas, and it does extend from Seattle, but then through the Tri-Cities and then Spokane. Anywhere you see purple is at least 40 miles per hour. And for us, that's 40 to 60 miles per hour, especially in that eastern Washington core. The strongest wind speeds will be right along the foothills of the Blue Mountains, southeastern Washington. That area is actually under a high wind warning, that elevated alert criteria, meaning that that is the location where the strongest wind speeds most likely going to be felt. So I mentioned the atmospheric river. And you're going to hear that term not only here, but across the Pacific Northwest, not only today, but for several days. This is turning into a long duration event. So it's these three weather factors, the three W's: wet, windy, and warm. And of course, we're getting the high winds, as you just saw, but the warm temperatures is a huge, huge player here. High temperatures, 20 degrees above average, almost record highs today, and snow levels climb to about 9,000 feet of elevation. And there's not very many mountains that are even at a peak of 9,000 feet. You got to think like Mount Rainier might be one of the only mountains actually seeing snow at the very tippy top of the mountain. Most everywhere else actually going to get melting snow for our mountains, and that's going to create some flooding concerns across the region. Here's the atmospheric river at scale, again turning into a longer duration event for the Pacific Northwest, since it's effectively just going to be pointed at us for several days. I gotta have this going all the way until next week. So we'll have our moments of higher winds, heavier rain, and of course warmer weather. Looks like today is just gonna be one of our windiest and warmest days. As for the rain, it's not too bad. This is all pretty light stuff for mostly North Idaho, a bit over Spokane. I think the heavier rain stays west of the Cascades. The mountains doing a pretty good job actually putting up a bit of a barrier and creating what's called a rain shadow effect for the region. Here's the warmth, 56 degrees in Spokane, almost a record high. but the record is 60, and that's the highest it's going to get in all of December. So if we hit a record high today, it will be our warmest December day ever for the entire month. That is how warm this weather pattern is. And of course, we have our weather impact alert day due to the high winds. And I said this is long duration, and the temperature trend reveals that. Highs in the 50s and above.
The Frozen Zoo is working to safeguard genetic diversity by freezing the cells of plants and animals. They just added their first insect. A closer look at the zoo's important work when we come right back. Welcome back to Weather Out West on this Wednesday. Let's get to this story. It's very interesting because as wildlife populations decline around the world, the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance is working to safeguard genetic diversity with its Frozen Zoo. It's the largest collection of living cells in the world, and this year marks 50 years of the Frozen Zoo. And the organization is marking the big milestone as it adds the first insect to its collection. CBS 8's Evan Noorani takes us inside.
In a huge win for wildlife, the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance has added its first ever insect to their Frozen Zoo. There, over 11,000 cell lines representing more than 1,300 species live under cryopreservation, and they're getting a new addition.
Obviously, no one's ever froze a Lord Howe Island stick insect or any stick insect for that matter. And so we use model species most of the time. So a lot of people have worked with butterflies and bees.
The Lord Howe Island stick insect species was thought to be extinct back in the 1930s. That is until hikers found a tiny group living on one shrub on a remote volcanic island.
They were saying that they'd seen this insect, and everyone's like, yeah, right. That sounds crazy. But then there were a couple of photographs that were taken. So finally, in 2001, the Department of Environment in Australia decided to go and take a look.
And it was true. The species was indeed still alive. After some of the insects had died of old age, their reproductive cells were preserved. Now at 320 degrees below zero, the Frozen Zoo is giving this species an extra layer of protection.
I was able to isolate the sperm in my lab, and then I noticed right away that the sperm was still motile, which is a great sign. And so that's why I decided to freeze the motile sperm.
You can think of it as genetic insurance, with sperm and other reproductive material living in the zoo that could be used for reproduction to help the genetic population of an endangered species in the event of a population decline. It could even one day help bring extinct animals back to life.
It's really important to have this backup system of the Frozen Zoo so that we're not only including all of the taxonomic groups, but we have options if things go south.
And this all happens as the Frozen Zoo turns 50. The zoo recently also cryopreserved its first plant contributions, expanding the collection's impact across kingdoms. Evan Noorani, CBS 8.
And coming up next, we're hearing about some frigid temperatures down in Denver and more pleasant weather over in Phoenix. Welcome back to Weather Out West on this Wednesday. I'm meteorologist Ashley Ruiz. Now let's take you to Denver, where meteorologists Kathy Sabin and Katie LaSalle talk about why it still feels pretty chilly despite some of the really mild and dry conditions.
Hello from Denver, Colorado. I'm 9 News Weather Impact Team Chief Meteorologist Kathy Sabin. We have seen high pressure build in and low pressure up to the north and east of us just provide like a squeeze play. The pressure gradient has been so tight. We have had extreme winds along the Front Range foothills. These winds that come down over the mountains and foothills into Denver are kind of warm, downsloping snow eater winds. So we're losing all of the beneficial moisture we saw from the storm last week. And instead, we're seeing like fire danger, elevated fire danger due to the unusually warm weather, the extremely gusty winds, and the lack of moisture for lower elevations. But this northwest flow is transporting in a few little short waves. Another one will come through today, and that might generate a little bit of snow for the northern and central mountains. Little meaning 1 to 4 inches. The other story is after a little break from the winds that we've seen from 50 to 90 miles per hour, we're going to see those winds increase again late in the day. We have a weak front that's going to back in along the front range, and Denver's not going to see a lot of wind or much moisture, but the foothills will see those winds increase again, and another high wind warning may be posted. So you have the wind and then you've got the snow, and just like yesterday, blowing snow on I-70 could create an impact for travelers that are headed in and out of the mountains early in the morning and throughout the afternoon. Denver sees a mix of clouds and sunshine. That westerly flow is downsloping, so temperatures will soar above the average of 44 yet again. Snow modeling, this European model indicating very light accumulation from the Steamboat area to Winter Park down to Aspen and Vail. So no advisories for snow or for travel. But with the wind and the snow, blowing snow creates visibility issues. Now in Denver, pretty quiet and mild. Mix of clouds and sunshine with mid-50s. Thursday, mid-60s, upper 50s Friday. We are dry right through the weekend into the first part of next week with no appreciable moisture or snow for Denver over the course of the next 5 to 7 days.
I'm 9 News Weather Impact Team's Katie LaSalle. It is December 10th, and while temperatures did not drop below freezing, at least in downtown Denver, it feels a little bit chillier outside. Feels like it's below freezing in the 20s early this morning. So I wanted to just take a look at, if you didn't already know, what wind chill is and how it is calculated. It's due to the air temperature plus the wind speed. There's a more scientific way of really calculating it, but it's really comes down to just how cold it feels on your skin. It only impacts people and animals, but it's for temperatures at or below 50 degrees and winds sustained at over 3 miles per hour. So when the winds pick up and the temperatures are sitting at 45 degrees, it could feel a whole lot colder with the winds really strong, and that's what we're expecting for today. So it's the feels like temperature on your skin. We're talking low wind chill values. That's when you really want to layer up, bundle up, and hypothermia, of course, could be really the biggest issue if you're not prepared for some very cold temperatures and strong gusty winds, which is what we're dealing with in the mountains for this Wednesday. Yesterday, we saw extremely high wind gusts, 40 to 50 miles per hour over portions of the plains, but 90 miles per hour officially recorded up over Dakota Hill. Berthoud Pass at 85 miles per hour. Extremely dangerous whipping winds. And once again for today, not as windy, but we have another high wind warning that will take effect for a big portion of Colorado's northern Front Range mountains. The foothills not quite as blustery, but still near Golden and Evergreen. These westerly winds sustained around 30 to 40 miles per hour and gusts up to 80. It really could cause some issues in spots, areas of blowing snow up over higher terrain. Fortunately, here in Colorado, we saw a big storm over the weekend, and that brought us some heavy mountain and foothill snow. A lot of it has melted over the metro area, but it is keeping fire danger lower with those strong winds from the west. Next up, a ridge of high pressure builds in all across the west coast, including here in Colorado, and that will create some warmer than average temperatures. Denver usually sees a high of 44 degrees this time in December. We're looking at 50s and 60s for this 7-day forecast.
Now let's head to the desert Southwest, where Ginger Jeffries is tracking some very warm conditions down in the desert, as expected, right?
I'm meteorologist Ginger Jeffries. A look at your weather out west across the great state of Arizona, where, as the rest of the nation, dealing with a clipper system that is bringing in strong winds, freezing conditions, and then we've got in the northwest where that atmospheric is going to bring in potential flooding. What are we doing? Basking in the glow of scenes like this. Yes, you gotta love it. We're seeing a couple thin clouds here and there, but overall, you know what? The talk of the town are temperatures, because they are definitely on the high side. Something to be warm and fuzzy about, just like these little lovebirds. One of our 12 News weather watchers, Mark Koster, setting in from Scottsdale. So how are we shaping up today? Nope, this is not a misprint. We are going for daytime highs in the upper 70s. Absolutely. This is well above the normal range. We're kind of within striking distance, is what I'll call it, of our records. Our records are in the healthy 80s, but I mean, my goodness, upper 70s. 70s, 10 degrees above the normal range. Even Flagstaff getting in the above normal game with about 59 degrees. I've got 72 in Safford, tickling 80 today in Tucson. We should hit that 80-degree marker in Yuma and about 78 to 79 in Parker. So what's happening? Ridge of high pressure. Anytime I talk about high pressure, that means I'm also talking about high temps, but it basically kind of acts like a linebacker and keeps all this cool air and the jet stream well to the north of us. So you can see very active weather, just not overhead. In fact, our skies are going to stay nice and clear. We'll get some mid-level clouds, but those clouds aren't going to bring around any kind of cooling. No major change up. High pressure is going to stay the course, which means sunny, warm, nice, calm winds and temperatures at about 78 degrees. So as far as the averages, where should we be? Upper 60s. Where could we be? Upper 80s. Right now, we're somewhere in the middle. So like I said, not record territory, but definitely on the warmer side. And tonight, it's going to be clear and calm, allowing those temperatures to drop off into the low 50s. Let's look ahead next 5 days, because I mean, if we're getting warmer and we're going to continue on this theme until about Friday, could that be record territory? It looks like the warmest day of the week will be on Friday, which I think is going to meet the record. Could it beat the record? Sure, we could get up to 80 degrees, but then as you can see, we're staying above the rim on Saturday and Sunday, where once again, we could meet the record, which is kind of a low record. Remember, the record for today is 87 degrees. So seeing a record at 78, definitely on the mild side. So certainly we are within striking distance. Now, as we look beyond that 5-day measure, let's see the 6 to 10-day temperature outlook. As far as conditions, it looks like, yes, we are going to be on the warmer side and drier side. The other weather element we'll see today is a little bit of wind to the west. We kind of saw this last week. We're going to revisit it today in Bullhead City, as winds are going to be upwards of 20, 25 miles an hour, not at advisory status. So the duration and the velocity just doesn't meet that criteria. Nonetheless, we will get some movement in the atmosphere today, and then it should start to deteriorate into the early morning hours under about 15 miles an hour. So tomorrow, we're going to wash, rinse, and repeat. Yep, highs pushing into the upper 70s overhead. I've even got 60s in Flagstaff. The good news there, overnight conditions definitely on the cool side, so that's good snowmaking, but no matter how you slice it, we're on the warm side.
Around 80 degrees with sunshine. That sounds very, very nice. All right, when we come back, we'll take a look at how the week is shaping up in the sunshine state. Meanwhile, in San Diego, we're seeing some unseasonably warm weather. I'm sure a lot of you may not be complaining about that. Vanessa Paz has more on how the Santa Ana winds are impacting temperatures.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. I'm CBS 8 meteorologist Vanessa Paz. Hope you're all having a beautiful work week. We are halfway there, almost to the weekend. We just have a couple of more days. Here in San Diego, we have been exceptionally hot. I mean, unseasonably warm. Daytime highs have soared anywhere between 10 to nearly 20 degrees from where we should be for this time of year. And yesterday, some areas across San Diego got so warm that we broke daily max records. For example, at Chula Vista, in fact, where I live, we easily beat our old record of 79 set back in 2017 with a high of 84 yesterday. In Escondido, we tied our old record of 86. And in Anaheim, that's of course outside of San Diego County, they beat a record set back in 2020 of 80 degrees, reaching a high of 84 yesterday afternoon. There's not a lot of relief looking ahead to Wednesday, even into Thursday. It's more towards the weekend when we'll really start to feel cooler temperatures, and that's as we see the winds shift more out of the west. So onshore flow will eventually make a return, and that will cool things down, but we just have to be patient. It's not going to be noticeable really until we get to the weekend. As we take a look, we are still dealing with that ridge of high pressure paired with Santa Ana winds. That's why we're looking at this unusual warmth along with very dry conditions. That will continue all the way through today. We will continue to have wind gusting up anywhere between 25 to 35 miles per hour along the valley floors and coastal mountain slopes. Elevated fire concerns course, because we talk about, again, the warm temperatures and of course the dry conditions with those low humidity levels. And yeah, we are seeing the risk of fire danger. But the good news is November brought a lot of rain. So a lot of our vegetation does have a lot of moisture, much needed moisture that we were looking forward to. As we take a look at our winds, so notice how they still track out of the east. That's going to dry things out, especially for our most populated neighborhoods west of the mountains. Notice what happens though Thursday into Friday, those winds sort of switch gears and move out of the west, more of that onshore flow, and that's going to bring our temperatures down a little bit. As we take a look at highs for this afternoon, we are talking about mostly mid to high 70s. Typically, both the coast and inland valleys should be in the upper 60s. So when we talk about unseasonably warm temperatures, some areas, especially inland, still trending anywhere between 10 to 20 degrees above average. All right, taking a look at our overnight lows, we will bottom out in the 50s across our microclimates, low 50s for the inland and mountain areas. Here's a quick look at highs for tomorrow. Still warm, but a little cooler. Looking ahead to Thursday afternoon. And in terms of rain chances, don't expect any rain anytime soon here in San Diego. I mean, we are going to stay pretty bone dry all the way through the middle of next week. As we take a look at our coastal and inland areas today and tomorrow, some of the warmest days. And then for the coast and valleys, we'll actually see those daytime highs shoot down about 10, 15 degrees or so by the time we get to the weekend. It will kind of be the opposite for the mountains and desert areas. They'll have a lag when it comes to cooler temperatures. In fact, we still stay pretty warm all the way through the weekend for spots like Borrego Springs and Ocotillo Wells in the mid to low 80s. And even for the mountain areas, we stay unusually warm in the mid 70s, and then we really won't start to feel and see that cool down until we get to the second half of the weekend, all the way into early next week.
We're seeing some pretty chilly temperatures to the north in Sacramento. Here's Brendan Minchef with the latest.
Hey, Brendan Minchef here in Sacramento, and Tuesday afternoon was cold. In fact, this month of December has been cold really across Northern California. We only hit 45 in Sacramento, 45 in Vacaville, 46 in Fairfield, 45 in Stockton, 40s across the valley. You can see the blue contours there. But then as soon as you worked your way up in elevation, Placerville 63, 63 in Truckee, 55 in South Lake Tahoe. Look at the departure from normal here. The Tahoe area running more than 10 degrees above normal. The valley running more than 10 degrees below normal. And it all has to do with that Thule fog. The gray did not lift across the valley. We were just underneath that gray blanket all Tuesday long, but plenty of sunshine across the high country. I'll also point out from satellite, though, you don't see hardly any white. There is not hardly any snow up in the high country. Slightly better across the high peaks of the southern Sierra, but there is just not much to be had right now. We've been in a dry pattern. We'll continue to be in a dry pattern. Looking at December in Sacramento, well, the 3rd was pretty nice, made it to 62 degrees above normal, and we had sunshine. But then as soon as those north winds died down, which is what brought us the sunshine on Wednesday the 3rd, well, as soon as those winds died down, the Thule fog came right on back, and we've been in the 40s ever since then. December 5th and December 9th, the two coldest days of 2025. I've got about 62 this afternoon in South Lake Tahoe, very close to the daily high temperature record, 63 in Forest Hill. As you work your way up in elevation, temperatures actually get warmer the further away from that fog that you are. 67 in Sequoia and Kings Canyon, 70 in Oakhurst, 67 Yosemite, 63 in Mariposa, 51 in Fresno. Again, some Thule fog in the lower valley. 50 in Hanford, even 55 in Bakersfield. You go into the coastal range, Santa Cruz Mountains, then you're looking at temperatures in the 70s, 66 in Gilroy, 73 Salinas, 63 Monterey. Out along the coast, Big Sur in the mid-70s this afternoon. 63 in Fremont, looking across the San Francisco Bay Area, mostly sunny skies, 58 San Francisco, 62 in Oakland, 61 Berkeley, 50 in Vacaville as we go back under that Thule fog blanket, 48 in Red Bluff, 61 in Redding, 62 Shasta, 59 in Fort Bragg, 57 in Eureka, 60s across the northern Sierra and the northeast plateau. But again, back in the valley here underneath of that Thule fog, 50 Modesto, 49 in Stockton, 48 in Sacramento, well below normal for the time of year. In fact, we've got some backwards temperatures right now because Tahoe average highs are in the low 40s this time of year. Sacramento average highs are in the mid 50s, and yet that is absolutely not what we've got. We look at that departure from normal for Sacramento, running 5 to 10 degrees below normal over the next several days with highs in the 40s and low 50s. But then you look at Tahoe's highs right now, running 15 to 20 degrees warmer than normal. High pressure giving us that very stable air mass, which is what is keeping that Thule fog around in the valley. Very weak system. Could bring some light showers to Shasta through the weekend, and then high pressure builds right back in. So we're just not seeing any real chances for rain or snow, and you can see just how far behind, now almost an inch behind where we should be for the time of year in December in terms of rain. Near record high temperatures in Tahoe the next several days. We stay under the fog blanket in the valley.
And when we come back, we're celebrating a new addition to an endangered species in the PNW. Here's something to smile about. A new calf has been spotted in the southern resident Cape Cod in Washington State. You see the little baby. This group of whales critically endangered. The Orca Conservancy says the calf looks energetic. It was spotted zipping around the other orcas, and the Center for Whale Research will assign it an alphanumeric ID and confirm who the calf's mother is on future research trips. The Conservancy says this is the first calf born into the Cape Cod since 2022. So cute. That's going to do it for us here on Weather Out West on this Wednesday. We thank you so much for being with us today, and we'll see you right back here on Thursday.